Recording. Oh, man. This is what being sick the entire week will do to you. So these Zoom calls are recorded and then I'll post it inside the Facebook group. So anybody that is, so if you can never attend, if you can't attend the live for whatever reason, that's how you find the recording, and please try to make up for it. So I already did a little bit of a introduction in my little short Facebook Live that I jumped on, I think yesterday or maybe Thursday, and just said hi to you guys. But I'm going to reiterate some of that because I think it's really important to kind of lay the ground of like why I did the program, why I do what I do, why I help people with the things that I do. So I created the reset. I created not just the reset, I created my coaching programs, my philosophy, because I spent literally half my life. I'm 36 for anybody who cares. So half my life is a really big fucking chunk of time engaging in hardcore, strict dieting, punishing chronic exercise. I was had a addiction to fitness, 100%. My health, my metabolism, my mental health took a hit from that after doing that for well over a decade, probably this was my late teens into all of my 20s. I was an excellent dieter. I'll wear that badge proud on my back. I was a compliant dieter. I felt like I did everything right. I tried every program out there. I'm sure some of you guys can resonate with that. I nailed my workouts. I diligently tracked everything that went into my mouth. I counted it, I weighed it, I tracked it, I earned and burned it, right? Where you work out to eat and then you eat to work out. This really weird relationship that we have with food and exercise. I did that for almost 15 years. My dieting started when I was young and I watched my mom diet. No hate or shame on my mom if she ever sees any of this stuff. Because she didn't know, she was only doing what she probably learned at some point in her life about her relationship with food and dieting, things like that. But I remember watching my mom never eat. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this person, but they'll never sit down at a table and eat a meal with you. They'll say that they kind of, oh, like I was just picking and whatever. She'll cook the meals, right? She enjoys cooking and doing all that stuff. And she'd be like, oh, I was nibbling the entire time. I'm not really hungry. I'm not sure I thought about it much when I was younger, but in hindsight now, I'm like, that's kind of interesting because that is stuff that I started to do as I got into, my adult late teens, adult years. There was always Slim Fast in our refrigerator. There's always Diet Coke. There was always skim milk, everything low fat. Like fat could not come in our front door. Like it was the devil of all things. So it's just a bunch of that. And again, I didn't think anything of it then because that was just the world, right? We lived in the world of Slim Fast and low fat Triscuits. Like that was just my existence and I didn't really know any better. But, and it's not to say we're diving deep into the psychology of why your relationship with food, but I think it's important to like sit and think for a second where your relationship with food, what you believe about food, your values with food, like where do they even come from in the first place? Like what are those narratives? Because I think it's important and it does end up showing up later in our life. Hence, I struggled with eating disorders in my late teens and all through my college years and stuff. And I'm sure part of that, what I experienced when I was younger, was a reason for that. But anyways, I don't blame my mother at all. But it's just something that I experienced. So fast forward through a decade of dieting, eating disorders, a bad relationship with food, a bad relationship with my body. I just thought there had to be a different way. I was tired. I was sick. I was hungry all the time. I was craving. I was restricting. I was binging, you name it. And I was like, is this it? Like, this is the only way to health. I have to sit and micromanage my food and I have to kill myself in the gym 6 days a week. Like, this is how I have to get healthy. And my healthy back then was skinny, right? I think we can probably that's what I thought was health. That's what I was chasing. I wasn't really chasing health. I was just chasing being in a smaller body because that is what societally we put importance and pressure on, right? That's a whole nother conversation Oh, Carlene, we'll dig into that one later. This diet culture bullshit that we've been conditioned to believe about our bodies. We'll do that later. Oh, hold on. Phone call coming on my work laptop. So anyways, I got to the point where I was like, I was burnt out, and I just like, my body never changed. Like, I didn't look good. I was like that skinny fat. I don't know, like, I don't really like those words, but I know that you guys will know what I'm talking about when I say that. I never felt good. I was hungry all the time. Like, my body composition never changed how I thought it was going to change from all of my dieting and my exercise. And I was like, when I got to a point later in life where I wanted when I wanted to get healthy, I was like, how do I do this? Like, how do I do this without having to micromanage my food? I don't want to exist with food like that anymore. And I know many people who resonate with my message and they come to my coaching, they don't want to do that anymore. They've spent a decade, 2 decades, sometimes 3 decades of their entire life existing with food like this, trying to get healthy, trying to lose weight. And they're like, I'm fucking done. Like, I'm done. You couldn't pay me enough money to put my food on a food scale again. I'd rather poke out my eye. That's where people are at these days. And we have so much misinformation in our diet culture that we've confused people to the point that we don't know how to feed ourselves anymore, right? Like, a fundamental principle of being a human, feeding ourselves, we don't know how to do it anymore. And people are terrified of it. And it shouldn't be this hard. So the people that I want are the people that want to reach their goals and just be able to coexist with food and their bodies peacefully, not obsessively. And part of my ongoing why, right? I might send out this weekend. I forgot to say, I try to keep these Zoom calls about an hour, give or take. Sometimes there's more questions and it goes a little bit over, so bear with me. And it's a lot of this. I'm talking at you, but please, if you guys have comments, questions, like, drop them in the message box. Like, this doesn't have to be me just yapping at you. Like, feel free to just chime in, or if I'm going too fast, tell me to shut up and slow down, because I tend to go off on rants and riffs 90% of the time. If you guys have been in a reset before, you know that happens often. You should have seen me when I was trying to do this when I was pregnant, like the pregnancy brain. I couldn't even formulate a sentence half the time, and I would lose track, and I'd have, like, you guys, what was I even talking about? I don't even remember. So there we go. Part of my why, so I might send out a little exercise for you guys to do. I know this is lame, but I'm trying to finish it up, so maybe I can send it out this weekend. But it's talking about why, identifying your why. Like, why are you here? Why did you join the reset? Because people will say, well, I want to lose some weight. I want my energy back. I'm sick of hardcore dieting and I want out of that. But why are those things important to you? Like, the real why that those things are important to you. Because if we are basing our why on some external, right? Well, I want a 6-pack. My husband wants me to get healthier, things like that. These things are never going to stick. It's going to be a lost cause. Like, we have to have a why that is based on things that we value in life. And that's what helps makes these things sustainable. And part of my why, since I have a daughter, she's about 1.5 years old now. I never want Murray to ever see me pull out a food scale and put my food on a fucking scale and think that's normal. Just because we've normalized engaging with food like this in this diet culture existence that we live in doesn't mean that's normal. It would kill me if she ever was like, oh, okay, well, I want to start tracking my food. Like, you're weighing your food, you're entering in it, right? Kids are so smart and they know what you're doing all the time. And I don't ever want her seeing me do that. I know that eventually diet culture is going to influence her, and I feel like I need to do what I need to do in order to at least buffer that from my perspective. Do you guys know the average?
Yes, of course.
Oh, era. Did you guys know the average age that girls, I'm sure there's a stat for boys too, start dieting is 8? Isn't that just insane? 8 years old. Girls want to go on a diet to change their body. And it's just, It's devastating. And I don't want, not to say Murray's never going to go through some of that, but that is part of, but I'm trying to, that's my why, you know, and that's part of my why anyway. So something for you guys to think about, like why you're really doing this. And here's the funny thing, you guys, we are the only species on the planet that micromanages their food. We're the only species on the planet that pays somebody else to tell us how to eat. Like all the other animals in the animal kingdom figured it out. But humans, right? Because we're humans in the animal kingdom, I guess kind of depending on what you believe on. If you don't believe in evolution, that's okay. Think back to your like great, 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 great grandparents and think of how they lived, how they looked, how they ate, things like that. Sometimes that's a better perspective for people who aren't on the whole evolution boat. But yeah, all the other animals figured it out. But here we are, humans with the biggest brain of them all, and we can't figure out how to feed ourselves for the life of us. So what is metabolism, right? I've talked about this. I am in the metabolism space. It's our fueling system, right? It determines how the calories that we eat, right? Fuel that we eat is used in the body. Is that fuel shuttled into your cells for energy? Is that fuel shuttled into storage, like hence your fat cells, the place that we don't want our fuel to be going to all of the time? And here's where we really got it wrong with metabolism. It's kind of a buzzword and people throw it out. And I don't think half the people know what the hell they're talking about when we're talking about the metabolism. We've really bastardized how it actually works. And we do that to sell people weird programs and supplements that like boost your metabolism. Like, no, they don't. No gummy that you guys eat, you guys, boosts your metabolism. I assure you that. And no tea that you drink is going to make you skinny. I just want to say that right off the bat. So our metabolism responds to signals and stress. Think of it as like a stress barometer, okay? It responds to the external and internal, and it responds to external and internal inputs, okay? Things in your environment. So inputs like food, movement, sleep, those kind of things. What metabolism doesn't do is it doesn't respond to dumb diet math equations like macros and calories and points and all the other weird things that we've done with our food at this point in time. The cool thing is the metabolism works the same for all humans, adults, children, men, women, anything in between there. Your metabolism works in the same way. We all use fuel in the same way. You know why? It's because we're all like 99.9% genetically the same, right? There's some nuance with that. So here's a concept that I want you guys to think about. I'm drinking kombucha, if anybody wants to know. It looks like wine. I actually would not be mad if this was wine. No judgment. I'm not a virtuous health coach here. I would totally drink a glass of wine, but it's kombucha. Here's a concept that you guys might want to make mental note of. Gene expression, okay? Not like the genes on your body, but like your genetic makeup, the genes inside your body. We have fixed genes, right? Our fixed genes, our hair, our eye color, things that you can do whatever you want, but you are not going to change because you're born with them. But the rest of those genes, the rest of those 99.9% of those genes are malleable, right? We can change them. So I like to think of genes as like little light switches, okay? They're little light switches, and our inputs can turn those light switches on or off. So I'll give you an example. What's a good example? Because I don't have one written down. Let's say high blood pressure or obesity, right? Let's say you have a predisposition in your family for high blood pressure. You're like, yeah, my mom, my grandpa, my uncle, they all have high blood pressure, or they're all obese or have diabetes or things like that. Like, though that's in my genes. I'm just like destined to have those things. So the thing is, we're not, and that's a good thing. Our genes are not our destiny. We actually have a lot of agency whether those genes switch themselves on or off. Okay, so take the high blood pressure for instance. that high blood pressure gene might not ever switch on, but it could depending on our input. So if we are living a sedentary life, if we're eating a junky diet, if we're not getting sleep, those things, you are more prone to that gene expressing itself. Does that make sense? Am I tracking with you guys? Okay. Sometimes that gene expression thing just goes over and I have to say it a couple times. So we have the ability to influence whether those flexible genes turn themselves on or off depending on our inputs, okay? So this is great because we have a lot of control over these things. And here's the thing. Our DNA, right? That's what our genes are. Our DNA is meant to be healthy, you guys. Like our default setting is health. It's not sickness. It's not being unhealthy. It's not metabolic dysfunction. If our DNA was faulty, our species would have never survived, right? 2.5 million years ago, 300,000 years ago, kind of wherever you are with our human existence, like our species would have died out a long time ago if those genes were unhealthy like they are today. Okay, so it's your birthright to be healthy. I want you guys to know. So what we're doing here in the resets, essentially, is we're realigning your inputs, right? Your food, your movement, your sleep, all those things with what your ancient DNA is expecting of us, okay? Because that's the thing. Our DNA, our genes, our biology is the same as it was 2.5 million years ago. That didn't change. What changed was our environment and how we take care of ourselves and things like that. So we want to get back to some of those inputs that our body's expecting. So now hey, can you guys, if you're not muted, you guys want to mute yourself just in case there's background chatter? Thank you. See, I just babbled half the time on not all of the topics that I even want to talk about today, because this is what happens. So week one, okay, now we're going into the actual content. That was your, what is it called? I don't know. This is where my brain is today, you guys. I kind of go big on the first day, the purge, right? I asked you guys to do a purge, and I'm asking you guys to take this purge very seriously. I want you to take this very seriously. Enabling your environment is hands down the best thing you can do for this, okay? What I've learned from previous clients and previous resets and doing this health coaching thing for quite a few years now, the ones who struggle the most are the ones who keep the unsupportive food in their homes, okay? You guys already know that the chips and the cookies and the ice cream and the candy and the whatever, like, probably aren't the best options in the world. You guys did not pay me money to tell you that chips and cookies were probably not a super good choice, right? We know that. You guys know that. You guys know that. So make a plan right now to get rid of those foods that are no longer supporting you and your health. Replace it with the foods that are, right? Check your food list. Get rid of those couple things that I talked about. I will go into next week why I asked you to tap the brakes. The two main things were grains and seed oils, right? Those were kind of those two big things. I will talk next week about why I'm asking you to tap the brakes on those. But for now, know that you will not die without them. I promise. And you'll be fine. And you can learn to live without them. I've seen it. I've seen it 100 times. And when I tell you next week why I asked you to tap the brakes on them, you'll understand it a little bit more. So this is not to say, and I do want to make this clear, this is not to say you guys are never gonna have treats again, okay? I love treats. I love treats. Like, humans are hedonistic creatures. We like things that are pleasurable to us, like treats. But here's the thing. A treat is a treat. Like, by definition, if I pulled up the definition of a treat right now, somewhere, because I've done it 100 times when I'm meeting with clients and we're talking about their relationship with treats, a treat, quote unquote, by definition, is something that we have an occasional adult indulgence that we have every once in a while, okay? Somehow treats the chips, the cookies, the candies, the ice cream, insert whatever your treat is. I really like Reese's peanut butter cups. That's my jam. Somehow treats have made it into our regular grocery carts, into our regular pantries, and onto our regular everyday plates. Okay? What I want you guys to do, let's put treats back in the treat zone. If you want a treat, have a treat. I think it's great. I work with this mom right now, and they every Tuesday, no, is it every Tuesday? No, every Friday night, they have a treat night. They order pizza. She takes all of her kids to the store. Everybody picks out like their container, right? Their box of candy or whatever, and they go home and eat it. And like, that's great. They don't buy torso-sized bags from Costco of candy and bring it back in their house for them to live in their pantry, of which you're going to eat it. You're going to eventually eat that, right? You're going to have a bad day. You're going to feel sad. You're going to have whatever. And then you're going to go in there, eat that. And you're going to feel bad about yourself. And I'm not in the game about making us feel bad about ourselves with a self-inflicted wound. Okay. So have treats. I love treats. Go out and have your treats. There's I'm in St. Paul. I don't know if I've ever said that. I'm in St. Paul, and we have Cooks, which is like a cookware kind of store, and inside there is a bakery. Oh my gosh, what is the bakery called? It's really popular, but they make fantastic. And they have, when in the fall season, they have the snickerdoodle croissants. And you bet your ass I avail myself of those every once in a while, but they never come back into my home. I'm not going to keep a container of croissants on my counter because I'm going to eat them all. I'm going to eat them all. So I don't want you guys. So we need to put treats back in the treat zone, like grown-ass adults. That's a good slogan for everybody to remember. And all will be good. And here's the thing, then we don't need to rely on willpower and discipline, right? Because if those foods aren't in your environment, we don't really need to rely on that. And I don't know about you guys, but I want to throw willpower and discipline out the freaking window in the first place. Who's ever relied on willpower to get through a diet before? I do. I'm sure a lot of you guys have tried that before. It doesn't work, right? It works maybe for a short period of time. And here's the thing. You guys all have willpower. Nobody here lacks willpower. I hate when we blame people for not being able to adhere to diets because we tell them they don't have willpower. Like, the lack of willpower suggests that you guys don't have will. Do you know what will is? Will is a desire to change, right? You guys all have that. That's not the case for any of you guys because you're here. You're in the reset trying to regain control of your health. So it's dumb that we tell people that they don't have willpower, okay? And you guys have discipline too. You don't need any more discipline. I don't know about you, but I spent those 15 years of my life trying to be disciplined and trying to discipline my body into compliance, and it never fucking worked. We get up in the morning, you guys probably go to your jobs. A lot of you guys are parents, you run a household, you parent, you take care of your kids. You have a lot of, so like you guys have discipline already. You don't need more discipline for this, okay? So let's throw those things out the window because they don't work anyways. And willpower, we all know about willpower, and it ebbs and flows. If you're having a bad day, your willpower's low. So if we're basing our healthy choices off willpower, we're screwed anyways. That's another thing about me. I tend to swear a lot. I've tried real hard to clear it up. Never works. Somebody once, I don't know, maybe I was talking to you, Carlene. Somebody once commented, so I'm on social media a lot. You guys see me, I'm walking, I'm talking on my phone all day long. That's how I get you guys, you know? And I swear a lot there too. And somebody had commented that they wanted to join the reset, but they didn't like how much I swear. And I was like, I don't fucking swear. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what? And that was the reason they didn't. But so I tried to clean it up for a little bit and it didn't work. So here we are. So I apologize if the words offend you.
Hey, Brandy.
Mm-hmm.
You'll clean it up when Murray starts saying the same words back. Then you'll be like backtracking.
I know. You guys, she drops things now and she says, shh, shh. I was like, oh no. Like, we've already started it. Like, I've already ruined her. We're going downhill from here. So I know. I try. I think swearing's I don't know. That's a different rabbit hole. We'll go down a different day. but anyways, we're kind of given this message in diet culture that if we just had more discipline, if we just had more willpower, if you would just try harder, right, you could stick to your diet. And then when it doesn't work, you get blamed, right? Like you must be doing something wrong because my thing works, my program, my diet, my macros, my calorie counting, whatever it is, like those work. So something's wrong with you that you're not doing it. And if you could just get a little bit more willpower, and if you could get a little bit, you could just comply a little bit more, it would work. And we're told it's our fault, and it's bullshit. And I hereby absolve you any guilt or shame that you've ever been conditioned to believe because you didn't have enough willpower to eat a certain way. So we're going to get rid of that. It's not your fault. Literally, it's not your fault. You are working against your biology, right? Your biology will always win. I want you guys to know that. Hunger will always win. It's not a flaw. It's not a deficit in your character. It's not a moral flaw. It is your human design to want to eat food. You guys read about that in the weekly lesson. We're literally hardwired to eat. It's an evolutionary skill, right? It's a survival mechanism. You are hardwired to eat as much as you can, whenever you can, as fast as you can, okay? So the humans who seeked out food and sex are the ones who survived, right? That's just how our species kind of continued to repopulate and keep going. We have these little pleasure centers in our brain that we evolved with that reward us by making us feel good, right? We get that little dopamine ding when we eat and we have sex. Why? Those things are typically enjoyable for most people. That was nature's way of encouraging us.
Still connected. No, don't end it.
Somebody thinks I'm funny. I think that was a laugh, or they're mortified about my sex and food talk right now. But anyways, that was nature's way of encouraging those behaviors so our species could keep going, okay? So problem being, we evolved in food scarcity, right? Food was not readily available to us. So we were always in search of food. That's why when we found food, we ate as much as we can, whenever we can, as fast as we can. That's how history unfolded here. Like, take a honey hive, for example. If you like go back to our hunter-gatherer days here, right? I go back to our hunter-gatherer days a lot. So you're going to have to tread with me here. Go back to our hunter-gatherer days. We were meandering around. We came across a honey hive in a tree. Do you think they pulled that honey hive down and they moderated it? They're like, boy, you guys, this is probably a lot of calories. Like, we shouldn't consume this. Like, we should ration this. Like, I'm only supposed to have 200 calories today of honey. Like, no, like we ate the entire thing because we did not know when we were going to have food again, right? That makes sense. So now we live in an environment. This is where the mismatch of our biology and our food and our modern day environment really clashes with each other. We now live in an environment where we have literal access to food 24/7. Okay. We can snap our fingers and we have freaky fat Jimmy Johns at our front door waiting for us. We can we can get in our cars, drive to the grocery store, and we can get food like this. We don't have to do anything anymore, okay? So this is why the whole moderation, when people say like everything in moderation, I hate health and wellness platitudes. That is one of them that needs to burn and die. Everything in moderation. It doesn't work for a lot of people. I'm sure there's some outliers in there that are like, yeah, I can just eat one Oreo. And I'm like, really? Who are you, you freak? No, you can't. But this is why moderation doesn't work for many people. We're not set up to moderate our food, okay? We're set up to feast when we have food, and then we're set up to fast, okay? Feasting and fasting. Those are really two situations where we're really good at. I'm not telling anybody to fast here, right? Because we're learning how to eat. Fasting is not working for anybody. We're not fasting. I'm not a fasting coach. But I'm just saying in food scarcity times, like we could sit with that and we would be fine, okay? So not great with moderation. We're not grazers. We're not snackers. We don't like graze and snack. We're not grazing animals, you guys. We're not cows. We're humans. We eat meals when we get hungry and then we stop when we're full. Cows graze all day because they have to, okay? We're not cows. So we're going to stop the grazing and we're going to stop the snacking, all that. So what I asked you guys yesterday about the foods to remove, two major things, grain-based foods, right? Oh my God, the base of our food pyramid. No, you didn't, Brandy. We're going to talk about that next week, but the food pyramid was made by our government. Depending on where you are about your beliefs about our government, I'll leave that up to you guys, but our government can be great for a lot of things, but telling us how to eat is not one of them. Okay, take other advice from government. I don't really know what that would be, but not diet advice. Okay, grain-based food. What are grains? Wheat, corn, rice, barley, oats. Okay, those are grains, and any of their derivatives, right? So like cookies, breads, pasta, chips, oatmeal, things like that, right? Those are all grain-based foods. You're not going to lose out on any nutrition. Don't worry about that. Despite being the center point of the modern day human diet, they offer relatively little nutrition in comparison to other human foods. There isn't anything that you can get from a grain, that you can't get from a different food in a less detrimental way. Okay. Seed oils. That was the other main thing. Legumes, you guys, like beans. Not a lot of people eat a whole lot of beans anymore. So I keep it on there, but like, I don't know, maybe you do, and that's okay. I've picked up not a lot of people eat a lot of beans in the first place anymore, but they are similar to grains. Like their compounds are similar to grains. We'll talk about that next week, but that's why that's on there. So Tim cried when I threw away his shitty peanut butter that he has in the refrigerator downstairs. I'm like, no. So seed oils. Ooh. Those are your canola, your soybean, your corn oil, your safflower oil, your sunflower oil. I think they were all kind of listed on your sheet. Soybean, did I say soybean? I don't remember. Those are seed oils. Those are vegetable oils, industrial seed oils, whatever you want to call them. They're hardly oils, okay? They're man-made fake fats. There's no oil in those anyway. Somebody tell me where the oil, like, think of corn, right? Corn oil. Like, where's their oil in corn? Think of an olive, right? Like, you can see the oil in an olive. You can squeeze an olive. But like corn, I don't even know. In canola, I don't even know what canola oil is. I forget where it even comes from, but I can guarantee there's no natural oil in that. So I'm not telling you guys what you can and cannot eat. I kind of am, kind of not. If you guys want to keep chips in the house, keep chips in the house. But no, you guys are the adults, right? You guys are the adults, and you guys get to control what comes into your house and what does not. But I am asking you guys to understand your biology and the fact that a lot of those foods, those snacky foods like the chips and the pretzels and the candies and the ice cream and all that stuff, they're engineered to make you overeat them, right? There are PhD level food scientists whose job is to make those foods unstoppable for you, right? Like Pringles, like the slogan for Pringles, once you pop, can't, whatever, stop, those kind, like they make them so you cannot have just one. Cheetos, did you guys know Cheetos are made so they dissolve in your mouth? Like, have you ever put a Cheeto in your mouth and it dissolves like that? It's so your brain never gets the memo that you ate anything. So you keep eating them. Like, it's designed. So it's not your fault unless you bring them into your home. And then we might have to take some personal responsibility for finding yourself knees deep in a bag of Doritos. And it's just like, I don't know. So it depends how you want your hard. Do you want it a little bit more harder because your biology is kind of hardwired to eat? Or do you want to make it a little bit easier on yourself and keep those foods out of the house and go eat them when you want them, right? Go to the store and buy a small bag of chips or something like that if you want a bag of chips, things like that. But maybe just not bring those kind of things into the house. Talking about the pantry purge, because I've had some questions about like, well, how do I navigate that with my family? I have some thoughts on this. My previous resetters can chime in too if you've in here or in the Facebook group, if you have found any kind of rhythm or whatever that has helped you sustain this with a family or roommates or whatever your house situation is. But there are I'll give you two scenarios, okay? There's two sides of Coach Brandy. There is the sensitive coach that is going, and there's the tough love coach. I'll let you guys decide which one resonates with you a little bit more. There's the sensitive coach of, I don't want to make this harder for you. So if throwing out your husband's potato chips or throwing out your kids' goldfish or whatever is going to cause conflict and strain in your house, then don't do it. Because if this is too hard, you're never going to stick to it. So we have to pick our battles. I've had some people like kind of like segregate their food a little bit, right? Like that's helped with some people. I've had some people like, okay, all the treats are going to stay in a cabinet downstairs, more of like an out of sight, out of mind type thing. That can sometimes work for people. I also have people that make like accommodations with their family, like the mom that I was working with that I told you, and every Friday they go out and they have a treat together, and it's like this fun experience, and they indulge and they experience the full experience of having a treat. So sometimes people have those negotiations with their family, like, I don't want this stuff in the house right now, but every Tuesday we're going to go to the gas station up the street and you guys can pick out your favorite thing and we can have that and we can enjoy that, whatever. Or we'll go up to the local bakery that has the fresh cookies every Tuesday and we'll all enjoy one of those, right? Sometimes that works with your family. The tough love coach, tough love side of me is going to say, your family doesn't need that food either. Isn't that sucks? I know. Your kids don't need that food. Your husbands, your wives, your roommates, they don't really need that food either, because it's not really food, right? They're treats that have somehow made their existence into our home regularly. It's not really food. And I think everybody will, okay. There's another individual that I work with, and she ripped the Band-Aid off with her family. She's like, I'm the one who grocery shops. I'm the one who cooks the meals, and I'm going to decide what goes on these plates and not. And she ripped the Band-Aids off. And in a couple of weeks, her family was like, oh, okay, this is like not that bad. We just aren't eating Oreos all the time. We're eating actually really delicious food and we feel a lot better. So you guys pick where you want to go with that purge, okay? So yeah, you're going to get rid of the unsupported foods, and then you're going to go stock up on the human food, the meat, the fish, the eggs, the poultry, the fruit, the seeds, the nuts, the vegetables, and the dairy if you're tolerant. That little list you guys will have memorized, because I've only said it 170 billion times in my life. You guys will have that little list memorized by the time you are done with the 6 weeks from me saying it to you all of the time. But those are foods. They're human foods. They're human foods. They're whole foods. They're pure foods. They exist in nature. They're the foods that we are biologically designed to eat, right? Meat, eggs, fish, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, dairy, blah, blah, blah. I'd even argue that the list that I gave you guys is much longer than the things that I asked you to take out. I really only asked you to take out two things, grains and seed oils. And seed oils, those are tricky. You're going to have to go into your refrigerator and your pantry, and you're going to have to flip over your food, and you're going to have to look at the ingredient label. I don't give a shit about the nutrition label. I'm not over here reading nutrition labels, but I do want you guys to know what is in your food ingredient wise. Your mayo, go check your mayo in your refrigerator. I bet 90% of you will be made with canola or soybean oil. They're sneaky. They're sneaky little oils. If you want suggestions about like condiments and stuff like that don't have those crappy oils, drop it into the group. I've got so many resources and ideas and brands and things like that too. So these are the foods, like the human foods, that support our bodies, they support our big brains, and they give us the most bioavailable nutrition as possible. And most importantly, they make us feel good. They make us feel good in our body, and they make us feel good in our mind. Where am I at? 10 minutes. I'm nailing it. Are we good so far? Oh, wait. I didn't even have the chat up. We micromanage life. 100%. Amy, I could go on and on about this. It's crazy. We micromanage.
That was just in your reference when you said something about micromanaging food. And that's just because when I work with people, I was like, they micromanage everything. From the time they're gonna breathe.
It's wild. We've gotten to the point that we also might like our water. Like you see people walking around with jugs of water, and it's like, when in our existence would we have ever done like that? Would like we're
They don't take
micromanaging
life
our
not
water.
very fun. Yeah, they make life not very fun. So I don't take life seriously. Just so you know, I know you said take it serious. I just can't because I teach people to lighten the fuck up. So I can't. So
But that probably jives with this in the sense that like
have fun with it.
it is. And like you guys have to have fun with you're gonna be doing this the rest of your life. You are gonna have to take care of yourself and you're gonna have to do the things that make you feel good for the rest of your life. This doesn't stop. Your health doesn't stop. There is no end date to this. So we have to figure out some enjoyment in the process of this. And this is what I tell people. Food is really important. It's super important, but it's not that big of a deal. Okay. I think like everybody remember that one. That's a good tagline. Food is really important, but it's not that big of a deal. So I appreciate you, Amy. We'll need some lightness in this for sure. I'm just looking at the other. I love beans. There are some people who eat a lot of beans. You know, like the song "Beans, Beans, the magical fruit." The more you, enough said on that one. I think that should be a good sign about maybe why beans don't jive. But we'll talk about that next week. So I do want to talk really quickly, and this might go 5-10 minutes over. Your first food fundamental, okay, and then we're wrapping it up after this. Was eat meal, ditch snacks, right? So what you guys are going to be doing this week and beyond, hopefully, every time you get hungry, you're going to make a meal of human food and you're going to eat it all the way to satiety. Okay. That's your first food fundamental. And we're going to layer each week. You're going to get a new food fundamental and they kind of layer on top of each other. So we want to prioritize meals, not snacks. I'm a staunch believer that if you need snacks in between your meals aren't doing their jobs. What do we think about that? What do we think about that? Eat meals when you get hungry. Like that sounds pretty logical when I say it. You're like, yeah, no shit, Brandy. Like we should eat when we get hungry and then when we get full, we should stop. That would make sense. But we don't do this. We don't do this in our culture. We eat and we don't eat for a lot of different reasons that have nothing to do with hunger, right? We eat because the clock on the wall. We eat because, oh, it's 9 o'clock. I should eat. It's 5 o'clock. I should eat. We eat because meal times, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack time. These are all societal constructs, right? Like meal times don't exist. Like this was just our culture making things up. We eat 5 to 6 meals a day, small little tidbits of meals all day because you know, Jim Bob at the gym told you that you need to eat 5 to 6 meals a day to keep your metabolism up. Jim Bob's a moron because that's not even how the metabolism works. We don't need to be eating all day like that. Or we eat every 2 to 3 hours because somebody told us we needed to eat frequently like that. We eat because we're bored, even though boredom doesn't really cause hunger. That will be a different topic for a different day as well. So what I want you guys to do when you get hungry, of which we feel in our bellies, right? That is where hunger cues up. This is interesting though, even though we're actually feeding ourselves. Like when cells detect that they're getting low on nourishment, they send a signal to your brain and your brain sends a signal to your belly because it makes sense, right? Because when we eat, we essentially fill our bellies. So that would make sense that we feel it there. Just like when we're thirsty, we feel it in our mouth. Just like when we're tired, we feel it in our eyes. Our bodies are real smart, you guys. They're real smart if we just hone into that. So if you feel hunger somewhere else, like your mind, like you feel hangry, you know that hangry feeling? Or if you don't get food ASAP, you're like gonna chew off your arm. If you get hangry, if you get shaky, some people get a little shaky when they're hungry, or you get a headache, maybe you get nauseous. That's your cue that your metabolism might need a little help, but you're in the right spot. That's your brain literally thinking you're starving, but you're not starving, right? Nobody here is starving. You can look down and you're like, I have some stores. Like my body is not starving. Why is it not eating my stores? Like because it can't. But we're gonna fix that. We're gonna fix that here in the reset. Maybe you don't even know what hunger feels like. I once worked with somebody She was in the reset and I was doing this exact same thing. She was a lady from my gym and she messaged me and she's like, what does hunger feel like? She was a chronic dieter, a yo-yo dieter, and she had no idea what hunger even felt like. That's where our society's at, where we've micromanaged food so much. We don't even know what hunger and fullness even feels like anymore. I think that's a cultural thing, and I think it's a metabolism thing that makes those signalings in our body a little bit unclear. So that's a problem, you guys. We were born with a perfect hunger signaling system that tells us when to eat and how much to eat. You have that technology inside you already. I promise, we just need to bring it back online. But we tend to override it. We let our intellect override our intuition. So we need to get out of our heads and we need to get back into our body. Think of a baby, okay? I was gonna say, remember when you were a baby, but nobody's probably gonna remember when they're babies, so that would be really dumb. But you guys have all probably seen babies eat. They're smart. They will eat when they're hungry, and then they will tell you when they are done, right? The babies that are closing their mouth and they're spitting out their food, and we're trying to, right? We're scooping it back up and we're shoving. It's like they're telling you, their signaling system is perfect. You're born with that. They know when to eat and when not to eat. So we're gonna eat like a baby. Think like a baby. Go back to that, okay? So we are working on leaning back into our natural hunger and satiety cues, and we're doing this by honoring our hunger with a meal. Okay? 57. So the second part of the eat meals, not snacks, is I want you to eat your meals all the way to satiety. That probably makes no sense to you guys, and that's okay. Satiety is a state of being well fed. Okay, it's a state of being well nourished. Think of contentment, right? Like satiety is contentment. Like it's what is a good way to explain this? It's the feeling that we get when your body's like, I'm just gonna put the fork down. Like I'm done eating. I don't want any more food. Like my body has gotten all that it's need, and you put the fork down. That is the feeling of satiety. We've been programmed by our wellness and diet culture. If you haven't caught on yet, I poo-poo on diet culture a lot. We've been programmed, especially women, and I know there are men in this group, so I hear you guys too, and the men might have experienced things like this too, but especially women, we have been programmed to eat small bites of food, to graze, to nibble, to pick at our food, to literally eat breadcrumbs all day long, all day long. We've never actually felt what satiety actually feels like, what it actually feels like to be well fed, to be satiated, okay? I had a client in the reset last time, and I'm pulling this up on my phone because I think this is really important. And she made the comment in the reset. She goes, I find it so unusual to feel so full all day. And by full, she's kind of talking about satiety. Every diet plan I've ever tried, I always feel hungry. Don't get me wrong. I'm very happy about this, but it's just a new phenomenon for me. Isn't that wild, you guys? It was a new phenomenon to her to feel fed, to not feel fucking hungry all the time from dieting. It just like blew her mind. This is what we do. Tell me if you've heard these comments before. Like, I feel like I'm eating too much. I think I've had enough. Like, I think I've had enough food. I shouldn't eat this much. You're not eating too much. Okay. I know these thoughts are going to go around in your guys' head. You're not eating too much. You are probably for the first time ever actually eating enough. Okay, enough. Satiety is enough. Diet culture programming runs deep. Satiety is eating enough. That is probably going to feel scary and uncomfortable for some of you who have been dieting. This might not be everybody's existence because not everybody in here are chronic dieters, but many of you guys are, and I know that from conversations for a lot of people. But even if you haven't dieted your entire life, you grew up in a diet culture. We all grew up in the diet culture. Like nobody got out of this alive, you guys. So this might feel uncomfortable for people because you're going to feel like you're eating too much and you're not. You're not eating too much. People who've been dieting, you've been trying to eat less and less and less and less your entire life probably, and that's okay. I'm here for that. So here's one of my knocks on like calorie counting and macros and points and portion sizes and all of these things. We let these dumb arbitrary numbers dictate our hunger and our fullness cues, right? Like, oh, my macro said I'm done eating, so I am done eating. That's not satiety. That's you following numbers that know nothing about your body. That is us trying to follow rigid food rules that literally make no sense to our bodies. Those things make no sense to our bodies. This is one, actually, I was scrolling through social media the other day, and this is one that I saw, and somebody was talking about eating to satiety, and they were telling people to eat to a 8 out of 10 fullness. Like, what the hell does that even mean? Like 80% fullness. Like, do we have some kind of percentage barometer in our belly that like goes off when you've hit 80%? It's more micromanaging. We're trying to micromanage satiety, and that doesn't even make sense. So maybe you have food on your plate, maybe you don't. Maybe you need to go get a little bit more food, right? This is going to take a little bit of practice. I truly believe if we can find ourselves back to a state of being well nourished, being fed, that the emotional eating, the boredom eating, the stress eating, the mindless snacker, the sugar cravings, the sugar addict, all of these, for the people who declare themselves these things, right? These, what do we want to call it? Like self-proclaiming characteristics that we believe about ourselves. I believe 90% of those will dissipate when we feed ourselves, okay? When we nourish ourselves, when we feed ourselves. We have to start with that, okay? We have to start with that. So here's a fun little satiety experiment for you, actually. Like was it my breakfast this morning or tomorrow? Or yeah, tomorrow. This was my breakfast tomorrow. Or yesterday, scramble yourself like 6 or 7 eggs. Just do it, like for shits and giggles. Or pile a bunch of food on your plate, right? All the human food, right? There's a caveat for this, you guys. I'm talking about human food. Like if you're putting cupcakes and pancakes, like you're going to overeat those. This doesn't apply to those foods. Fill your plate tomorrow morning with human food, more food than you think that you know you'll eat. I'm serious about this. Like pile that food onto your plate and practice eating to satiety. Okay, you're not going to overeat it. You're not going to overeat eggs. It's impossible. It's literally impossible to overeat protein. We'll talk about that when we talk about protein. It's impossible, but that's a really good way of practicing like tapping into your hunger and your satiety cues. Let me wet my whistle. I think that was it. Does anybody have any question? I know somebody, also, you have said better. What's that? I'll find a link on the video. Great to see you all. Actually, really quick, the one thing, the alcohol piece. Somebody asked about alcohol, in the group. How should I talk about alcohol? So I'm not anybody's mom. I do want to make that clear. I don't want to tell anybody you can or cannot drink, right? Because we're grown ass adults, we're gonna have to make that decision first. But let's talk about alcohol for 1 second. And this is coming from a non-virtuous health coach who it's not that I don't drink. I drink very rarely now because I have a child who doesn't like to sleep, and I don't want to do anything else that will jeopardize my sleep at this point in time. So I have been drinking way less than I ever used to do before. But that is not to say I'm an old-fashioned girl. I like a good whiskey. That is my drink of choice. Wine's great every once in a while too. But here's the thing about alcohol, what we know. We know that people who don't drink tend to have better health outcomes. That's fact. Like that's an inarguable fact. It's a neurotoxin. That sounds like so dangerous and creepy, so I really hate saying it. There are no health benefits to drinking, right? People like to argue like, oh, there's resveratrol in wine and grapes, and like, well, just eat some grapes then, right? We don't need to drink the wine to get the benefit. Like, drink the wine if you want the damn wine, but don't drink the wine because we're trying to pretend that there's a health benefit from it, okay? Here's the other thing. What is your relationship with alcohol? I know from experience because when I drink, I am a snacker. I am a bottomless pit and I will eat everything in sight. I know that about myself. And if that is you, you're going to have to weigh if that is going to be a helpful behavior for you or if that's going to be an unhelpful behavior for you. So a lot of people struggle with that. We drink, our inhibitions go down and we're like, I'm just going to eat all the chips and the candy. I don't even care. And I'll get back on track. Like we do that all the time. A lot of people do that when they're drinking. But if you have certain goals that you know that is going to butt up against, then maybe you want to consider tapping the brakes on that or just decreasing the amount of alcohol that you're drinking or something along those lines. The other thing, sleep. We also know this from research that even one drink before you go to bed will inhibit your ability to get into deep sleep. That is also an inarguable fact. We know this from data. Some people like to say that they like to drink because it helps them fall asleep. It might help you fall asleep because it's kind of knocking you unconscious is not the same as good sleep. I do want to make that clear. It might help you fall asleep, but the sleep that you are getting is not good. It's not as good as it would be if you did not have that drink. We know that it fragments your sleep and we know, right? So we go through sleep cycles. When we sleep, we go through light sleep, we go through deep sleep, we go through REM sleep every 90 minutes. We'll talk about this in week 5 when we talk about sleep. When we drink, even just one drink before sometime in the evening time, it fragments that deep sleep. Okay, so you're not going to get the best sleep. The other part of this, it's like a dominoes effect because people who drink and then they have a hangover the next day, what happens, right? Our energy's down, our mood's down. We don't really feel super great about this. Isn't everybody. I'm just kind of like a universal look on alcohol. But for a lot of people, it's a dominoes effect. Like, okay, so you drink, so the next day you don't have a lot of energy. So maybe if you go to the gym and you work out, you don't do that because you don't feel well. And then you're feeling kind of hungover. So you want a Big Mac because you think that's right. It's kind of the spiral of it's a bunch of negative consequences that sometimes happen when we drink. The other piece of this is calories. You won't hear me talk a lot about calories because I'm bored with that conversation and this calories in, calories out business in our world. But calories still matter, okay? So if you have a fat loss goal, and again, this is for people with fat loss goals. If you came here with a fat loss goal, we can't turn a blind eye if you're having several drinks a day or throughout the week. They are empty calories, right? Everybody's heard of that word, the word empty calories. There is no nutritional benefit from it. And it is very easy to put, 3, 4, 5, 600 calories worth of drinks in a short period of time. And that might not help for fat loss. Does that kind of answer everybody? Like, it's just a little information around drinking. So it's one of those, like, you're just gonna have to weigh the pros and cons and what your relationship with alcohol is. Some people say my steak is waiting. You guys, my steak is waiting too. Tim is cooking right now with Murray. But this is gonna be done in 1 minute. I know some people will say that, well, I just like a glass of wine or whatever at the end of the day to unwind. It helps me de-stress. I can guarantee you the stress that you had before your glass of wine is still going to be there after your glass of wine. Okay, that's kind of what we know about stress. And again, no hate, no shame, because I have drinks every once in a while, but that's just something for you guys to know. So if you have more questions about that, if you guys have any more questions about this, please just drop it in the Facebook group. Otherwise, I will, your next weekly lesson will come out next Thursday, and I will see you guys next Friday. Okay?
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Brandy.
Thank you. Bye.